Welcome to the Diesel Podcast presented by DFC Diesel. Dan, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today about Snyder Performance Engineering, a really cool new product you guys have for the 6.7 Power Strokes with a CP3 conversion kit. And I'd love to be able to catch up with you and see what you guys have been up to. So, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you having us.
To start, like, I'm really familiar with you guys. Been following you guys for years from like the shop and the racing with UCC, and I know what you guys do. But for any of our listeners that this is their first time hearing about SPE, tell me a bit about yourself, the company, like where you guys are located in, and then what you guys focus on for upgrades for trucks.
Yeah, so we're in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. If you're familiar with PA, we're closer to Pittsburgh. Um, we've been in business, I think, since like 2011, roughly. Um, yeah, we specialize mostly in Ford stuff. So our motto is work and play, and we handle basically everything from the Super Duty platforms all the way to like say the Mustang platform. Um, our bread and butter has always been the 6.7 Power Stroke. That's where we've focused a lot of our, I would call it efforts, into making the platform better. That's it's definitely a key platform for us. So
I remember way back when like the performance stuff you were doing with 6.7 Power Strokes was really cool, and that progressed through. I don't even remember how much boost you told me you were making on the dragster, and like you were finding limits of the block and the heads and different things that you guys were doing, like really early on with it. So it's been cool to follow 6.7s from like 2011 on. I think it's like its reputation in the market is really strong. I've said it before on the podcast, but like I know a lot of guys or people who specialize in Cummins parts that use a six
yeah,
seven Power Stroke to tow their stuff around. So
right.
it's
Yeah,
popular.
yeah. It's funny watching the Cummins guys really gravitate towards the Luma Duty trucks now. It's like, we're friends with everybody at Firepunk, and a lot of them drive Fords for hauling their race rigs, which are Cummins, obviously, but
Yeah,
it is cool to see. I think, not to go off track, but it's such a it's such a good platform, from a workhorse standpoint. It's really hard to scoff at it. I mean, they're just really good trucks. But
yeah, and I think like as people have had them for a while, or as they start to get more mileage on them, there's some limitations that are found with like a big one was like turbos on the 2011 to 14 trucks.
oh yeah,
Um, and fixes for those, but the one thing I think about with 6.7 Power Strokes as far as an issue that can show itself is the injection pump. And I saw recently that you guys had a big announcement of a solution for that. And so I wanted to have you walk me, the audience, through what you guys focused on for a fix for 6.7
yeah.
Power Strokes.
So well, everybody's obviously familiar if you're a Ford person. You're familiar with the issues with the CP4, which is what you're talking about. Um, so you have modified versions of that pump on the market. You have the DCR that's on the market, and they all have positives and they all have negatives. And we've obviously seen those throughout the years. Um, not to shame any of the options that are out there because they like I said, they all have positives, they all have negatives. And we looked at that in a very open-minded point of view, and we know, being that we've worked on a lot of different vehicles over the years and have friends with a lot of Cummins products, um, CP3 is obviously king. In the high pressure fuel pump world, we all know that that is just the bread and butter pump for the high pressure fuel pump. And I think, ideally everybody would want to put that pump in the 6.7 engine. The problem with that is there's not enough room in the valley. So the block just doesn't have enough as far as the orientation of the pump heads. You just can't nicely get it in there with an adapter plate or anything like that. So it just we kind of knew that from day one, from the very first time we tore one apart. We're like, man, everybody kind of thought that, look at all the other platforms that, everybody converts, like the even from the Duramax standpoint, converting it. to the back to the CP3, like on the I think the L5P stuff and other platforms. But anyway, yeah, so we saw that early on, so we knew it wasn't going to be an easy solution. Many years went by. There never really became a good fix until, say, the DCR came along. And that pump has a lot of positives. Some of the negatives that we don't like is there's just not a lot of availability out there compared to other, mass-produced pumps that already exist. Um, so that was like one of the downfalls that we didn't like. But we had a lot of customers just really pushing for that they really wanted, CP3 option basically. Um, so long story short on that end, really we kind of bit the bullet because it was one of those things where we didn't want to initially do it because there were other options out there. But we're like, all right, well, we know this is going to be difficult. Let's just sit down with a blank sheet of paper and think of this different than how everybody else has thought of it.
Yeah.
So rather than trying to do some kind of crazy gear drive system to put it in the valley and really just make the expense way through the roof. We took a simpler approach, and the simpler approach is, putting on it on a belt drive system was where we lean towards, and putting it on the belt drive essentially made it easier to get to the pumps if you have a problem, made it easier to put it on. There's a lot of positives to that, and then there's a lot of negatives that people see. Um, and obviously we'll go through all that. But the biggest thing with it was there really isn't a whole lot more options. Like, and we all like, dual fueler systems, they've been around forever. It doesn't matter whether it's, a Cummins, a Duramax, whatever. Um, People have been putting two pumps on trucks forever.
Yeah.
Well, we have trucks in our fleet with dual fuelers on them for, 200,000 miles on some of our test trucks. No belt issues, no problems. We've seen no issues with them. No premature belt wear, no major problems. So, one of the concerning things for people is, oh, well, if we put that on the belt, like, what's going to happen to the belt? Is it going to have problems? Is it going to wear sooner? Is it going to, have a bunch of issues? And we felt very confident before we got into actually testing. We felt very confident on that because of, the dual fueler stuff that's already been out there. So that was kind of the start of that, the logic behind it. And then we started to dive into it from that point. But obviously there's a lot of other things on the 6.7 that you have to essentially find a solution for, you know what I mean? Other than just obviously putting the pump out there. So
Hey, Diesel fans, we want to give a shout out to our friends over at Kershaw Knives. They have a 20% off code. So if you add some knives to your cart, add code 20 TDP 2026, you get 20% off of MSRP. It's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear if you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, different handle designs, different opening mechanisms, and their whole lineup's designed to meet any budget that you might have. So if you're in the market, head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code 20 TDP 2026 and get 20% off your cart. I find myself, there's a ton of questions I want to ask you, and my mind's kind of racing, and I need to slow down and figure out how to ask them like in the right stage. All right, I think the first one is like, I'm a Cummins fan. I've had a Cummins and a Duramax, and people that have had those trucks are familiar with CP3s because they've been around forever.
right.
But I think if I owned a Power Stroke and that was all that I owned, I went from H-Pops to, what's the 6.4 have, the K13 to K16 to a CP4. I might know CP3s exist, but I don't have the kind of detailed knowledge of it, because it was on the other brands. What does a CP3 provide that would be a positive for a daily driven truck, or maybe something that's making a little bit more power? But what does it give the truck owner that the other pumps don't?
So you're saying basically like directly comparing to, say, the CP4?
Yeah, like, is a CP3,
Right.
is its reliability better? Can it support higher power levels? Is it say tunability easier?
Honestly, it's really all of the above. You know what I mean? But a couple of the major things. Um, just touching on the CP3 versus CP4. You know, CP4 has two high pressure fuel pump heads on it, essentially. The CP3 has three. So one of the goofy things with the 6.7, and anybody that works on them will know this, they from the factory, if you're say timing the engine and then putting the fuel pump in, there's lines on the gear. They actually want you to basically time the pump, which doesn't have anything to do with its operation other than harmonics. So it's because of the twin fuel pump pulsing, the dual head. It creates like a harmonic. So they want you to time it a specific way so that you don't get like weird fuel pulsations and harmonics. CP3, you don't have to worry about that because of the triple pump head. You know what I mean? The three plunger deal. So like that's one of the very basic things of it. Obviously, from a pump that has a good track record, you can look at just the year range it's been produced. I mean, hell, the Cummins had it, I think, what, up to last year? And then I
Yeah.
think they went back to the CP4 or CP8, whatever they're calling it now. But look at that track record there. I mean, that was what, was that 05 or 06 they came out with the CP3?
Or O3
I
on
think on
the
the Cummins.
yeah, the
Or
O3
was it?
common. Yeah, so
Yeah, somewhere in there.
it's a good
Or
run.
no, it would have been, yeah, you're right. It was the 5.9 would have been what, 04 maybe?
The
Something like that.
I don't remember the exact change. I think it was like I think they started building the common rails in like November. I'm kind of being a Cummins nerd here, but I think it was like November,
Yeah.
December of '02 is when they started to shift over
Okay.
and
So,
prepare.
I mean, that's a hell of a run. That's 20
Yeah,
some years on, one pump platform.
yeah,
So I guess if you just basically laid it out to the Power Stroke guys that way, like, hey, this has been produced since 2003.
yeah.
Um, what is it? Oh, one. Oh, oh, one. Really? It's been produced since I got my what's Rogan's Jamie. I got my Jamie sitting over here. She said oh 01. So, I mean, I don't think it was on the 5.9 there. That's when it was introduced. Okay. Well, anyway, so I mean, look at that. Look at that run though.
Yeah,
So you could just basically unfold that way and say, hey, like this is from a reliability and a volume standpoint, really to me that even more cements it in place of how good of a pump it is because it lasted that long.
yeah,
And then the horsepower stuff, that's the volume of it. Um, is it a crazy amount, of difference between the CP4 and the CP3? Stock for stock, not a whole lot. I mean, the most modern CP4 and CP3 are probably really close. In our system, we adjust the ratio of what the CP3 is spinning so that, when the engine's cranking, obviously, since it's on a belt, we have to take all that into consideration that it pulses and primes correctly. So it's slightly overdriven. When I say that, I mean it's like a very slight amount. But that also up top in RPM adds more power potential. So over the CP4 in this application.
yeah. I think that track record from like 2001 with the LB7 and the CP3s all the way up, for 24 years, and not just at the OEM level, but the aftermarket. I know that parts supply and availability has been a major issue for 5
Right.
years, and I just think about what is out there and
Right.
the data that would have me sold just kind of right there. But I think if I'm wrapping my head around this and I've got a 6.7, I've got some issues, or I just don't want to deal with a CP4. Maybe I had a failure. I had to spend all the money to replace it because it grenaded and
Right.
metal went everywhere. How does it lay out in the engine bay? Like how is the install and getting it all set up on the engine? How does that lay out?
Okay. So architecturally, looking at all the pieces to this puzzle, obviously there's a bracket set up, moves the pump, out to the actual um, accessory drive. So you'll have that out on the front of the engine. The one cool thing that we do, and this is really the part that makes it in my opinion, it's a solution to a difficult issue, um, is the vacuum pump drive. So on the 6.7 Power Stroke, the front of the drive gear for the CP4, there's a keyway cut in the front of it, it's basically like a slot. And that slot actually drives the mechanical vacuum pump for all the other truck systems like the brakes, the EGR stuff, the four-wheel drive. That's all, running off of that vacuum pump. So that's a key component. We can't just say pull that gear out, pull the pump out, and just put block off plates on it. It won't, you know what I mean? It won't work. So, obviously we want to retain the mechanical vacuum pump that's supposed to be there. And you could put an electric one on it, but we didn't like the reliability. We want to keep everything as factory as possible. You know what I mean? So the process there is we have to still essentially drive the vacuum pump, but we're no longer driving the fuel pump. So we created an idler system that you'll mount the CP4 gear back in there. All it's doing now is idling and spinning on a shaft. And then the actual vacuum pump can still be driven as if though it was from factory. And then on the back side of that, we have a fuel distribution block that handles the distribution of the low pressure fuel and the high pressure fuel. And the cool thing about it is all of the factory lines, so like your factory high pressure lines and your factory low pressure lines, all hook up and stay on the truck. So we don't remove any of them, we don't cut any of them. They all go right back to where they originally were after you take the CP4 out. So they hook up like factory, and then all we do is we run factory style, bent hard lines that run out to the CP3 pump to then tie it in.
Okay.
So I think that's probably really the heart of making that system, work and function, and it be a simple bolt-on installation.
Okay, that's making sense to me. So that with the CP4, that's removed out of the equation almost
Yes,
entirely, except for that gear that you'd mentioned to be able to drive those accessories.
correct.
So then I don't have to face that issue anymore. But I think I was reading this on your website, and I thought it was good. It'd be good to ask you on the podcast. Is this CP3 kit will also work with your disaster prevention kit, correct? As far as the fittings, or if somebody already has it on their truck and they want to go
Uh,
CP3,
no, technically
okay,
no, it
so it'd
wouldn't.
go away.
Yeah, it would go away. We do have what we call our exo filter, which is basically it's a return side filter. If you had that, that could stay on.
Okay,
The return side filter could stay on, but the DPK, it does on the CP4. The DPK is actually sandwiching between the fuel pump and the M prop. So obviously on the CP3 that changes, and the way that the fuel's fed through the CP3 is totally different anyway. So it kind
okay,
of makes it relevant.
okay.
So
I think I found over the years with people who have trucks and they keep them for a long time is they kind of go through an evolution of upgrades they might do, whether out of necessity or whether they wanted some sort of power level or something like that. And once we get into the kind of a bigger solution, they always say, well, can I still use this part? Will this still work? Like, what if I've got a Fass or
right,
an air dog on my truck? Like, will that still work?
right.
Will it all connect? So I always love to ask those questions so that, if someone's looking at getting this kit and they're going to take it to a shop, or maybe it's a shop that's listening and they want to offer this to their customers, they understand the smaller details of what somebody may have done prior to when it showed up there
Right,
at
right.
the shop.
Yeah, and that's a key thing with a lot of our products. We like to try to keep that. I call it modularity, where if you're buying, a turbo or a piping kit, does it work with more upgrades down the road? Like for instance, is our Emperor turbo kit works with our compound kit, so they overlap and they work together and bolt together. So, but yes, that's a good point.
And the big one, because I'm going back to that kind of not necessarily analogy, but perspective I mentioned before, where if I was a Power Stroke fan and maybe I've owned a few different generations, I know the CP3 stuff has existed on Cummins and Duramax trucks, but I'm not really that deep into the knowledge of it. And I
Mhm.
think, well, I want a bit more power. So what kind of power levels or what options am I going to have with a CP3? Maybe if we start at like stock, maybe 500
Yeah.
horsepower, and as we go up, how will that kit and those options grow with me?
So one of the really cool things that we fell on without meaning to fall on it is it actually is a performance upgrade. So we're able to flow the amount of fuel essentially a stroker CP4 is flowing. So we have trucks making close to 800 horsepower in that 7 to 800 horsepower range, depending obviously on many things, air, fuel, injectors, whatever. But um, yeah, it flows. It's an upgrade, and we never really meant it to be an upgrade. You know what I mean? Um, and I want to clarify too, like in our kits, the CP3s are being supplied by Exergy. We've worked with them for a long time, and we felt like it was just a really good it was just a really good partnership working together with that. They're handling all the fuel pump side, and we're handling all the auxiliary pieces to the system. So, but yeah, so the power potential is raised. I would say you depending on the situation, 7 to 800 horsepower is easily doable as far as fuel volume. And the other cool thing is, all at the same time, you can bolt this kit on a completely stock truck with no tuning. So we have everything from the drive ratios to the fuel pumps set up to where you're putting this on, no tune required.
That was going to be the next question I asked you was about the electronic side, and I think again, if I was in that position where I wanted a solution, I would love the fact that I don't have to necessarily do anything electronically, that I can
Right,
just bolt it on, go, and it's going to operate basically like the truck is stock.
right.
And I know for the performance guys, that's going to change because they're going to be, aiming for a particular power number.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
but I think that's a huge component or a huge pro as well as
Absolutely.
the electronics.
Well, and you got to look at, we knew we couldn't bring a product to market that was going to be, say, needing tuned and everybody else doesn't. You know what I mean? So we had
Yeah,
to obviously play together, and it had to work out. But it took some fumbling and some playing around, but we got everything really dialed. So
I'm sure you spend a ton of time in R&D and testing on this. How how would you say is for the performance? Maybe it's with throttle response, maybe it's with kind of where you feel it in the mid or upper RPM range. But on a say a tuned truck, something very kind of mild, do you notice a big difference going from the CP4 to a CP3 as far as the performance side?
yeah, oddly enough, the throttle response actually is one of the things that we had some beta testers, even which are some tuning companies that we had sent some stuff to. We all kind of had the same feelings on it. Yeah, throttle response, even with no tuning changes, even just throwing the system on, driving the truck, um, everything felt pretty much factory, other than the fact that the throttle response was, I don't want to call it touchier, but it was just definitely different. Like not worse, definitely better. But like I said, not touchy, but it's just something that you noticed, you know, almost as if though like the torque limiting wasn't happening quite as much. I don't know. It's hard to
Okay.
explain. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that makes sense.
It's kind of like when you throw a dual fueler on a truck, but you don't
Yeah,
even tune for it,
yeah,
and you notice it drives different. You
yeah.
know?
It's more responsive. You could really feel it like part throttle.
Yes, exactly. Like that volume there is just helping it.
Yeah.
But
What really gets crazy thinking about is like we talked about the aftermarket and the longevity of CP3s and all the R&D that's been done for 20 years on them.
right.
So when I think of the power potential that I could get with this kit and options, you mentioned Exergy is handling, the CP3 side.
Mhm.
I mean, the sky's the limit with what they could do with stroker pump or some other
Oh
things that they
yeah.
could do.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it
Right,
opens
right,
up my fueling a lot.
right, right. For sure.
How long would you say the install takes? How involved is it?
So we've done with the beta testers, we've done things where we've sent kits with zero instruction. Basically, like, here's your parts, put it on, tell me what you think, how long did it take? Um, it seems like it takes them about an hour more than just replacing the CP4. So Not a whole lot longer. I mean, really all you're doing is you're adding, the belt drive aspect to it. But even changing the CP4, you have all that stuff off. So you're essentially bolting a bracket and two more lines on versus just changing the pump, just to paint that picture.
Good thing I wasn't a beta tester because it would have taken a month and probably 300 phone calls. I don't think I would have had it done without
It's
instructions or anything like that.
it's actually fairly simple. It's fairly simple. No.
As kind of to step back a little bit, 'cause I'm thinking about the 6.7 performance, in general, and how this factors into it. Like, what do you think it's going to do for the potential of these trucks? And I mean, maybe it's race, maybe it's high horsepower, but I'm just kind of thinking about drivability of a street driven truck and really the reliability of it. Because I think CP4s, whether it was with Duramaxes like LMLs, whether it was with 6.7 Power Strokes, it always seemed like that was kind of the weak link of the truck. Like the transmissions had potential, the engines were pretty good, the tuning options were there, turbos were all right, but you just felt like you had this ticking time bomb with your fuel injection pump and this huge bill kind of hanging out there that you might have to
Right.
spend thousands on. But as a 6.7 enthusiast and racer and a company
Mhm.
that's built around it, what do you think this is going to do for the potential of that platform?
Honestly, I think it's going to add. So not to jump around, but one of the things I'm already noticing, like say in the used truck market with the 6.7, is the 17 and up trucks, the aluminum body trucks, they're holding their value like crazy. Like I've never seen trucks that old hold that kind of value, from other brands. Um, I think this is going to make it even worse. You know what I mean? I think being able to have, like you're saying, essentially fixing that issue that everybody's always worried about. It's like that little thing hanging over your head. Um, and it's probably even worse for somebody buying a used truck because
Yeah.
they're like, man, I didn't have this truck since new. Now it's got miles on it. Who knows when it was replaced? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things there. And I think it's gonna help that market considerably. I think I think the used market, people are going to be a lot more confident, buying something if they know it has that on it. So hopefully that starts driving the value up even more for people. And then obviously that reliability is going to put even more miles on. Hell, I'm seeing used trucks with it's nothing. We have some test mules with over 300,000 miles on them,
Wow.
and they're still running great. It's nothing to see a used Duty truck with well over 200,000 miles on it still just running away. You know what I mean? So I think that's going to get even higher now, honestly.
Hey, diesel fans, I wanted to chat with you about diesel fuel. It's something we've talked about a lot on the podcast, and specifically ways that it can lead to a lot of costly repairs. And the main reason that we have these issues is a lack of lubricity. Our friends over at Hotshot Secrets have developed a formula that boosts performance and then addresses this issue. So whether you have an old truck, new one, something anywhere in between, we all face this issue. Hotshot's EDT is a 6-in-1 formula. It cleans injectors, boosts cetane, and it has 4 times the lubricity as their leading competitor. So it's a great way to be able to stay ahead of the maintenance curve, avoid those costly repairs, and the best part is it does the work for you. So all you do is add it to your regular fuel up schedule, and it's doing all the heavy lifting. So you don't have to worry about some of those issues that just come with diesel fuel anytime we buy it from the pump. If you go to hotshotsecret.com, use code DieselPod20. It'll get you 20% off your order. We really appreciate the team and our friends over at Hotshot Secret offering this discount code just for you guys. So if you're in the market, head on over to their website, use code DieselPod20, and get 20% off your order. Common question we get from you guys a lot is, hey, I need a diesel engine. I either, I can't wait this long to get one, or normal place I get stuff from it just takes too long, or they don't have the parts in it that I need. Maybe my truck's not stock or I tow heavy with it. I don't want to go back with just a stock engine. DFC Diesel is a sponsor of the podcast. We worked with them, hand in hand on doing episodes, answering technical questions. They have a complete lineup of Cummins, Duramax, and Power Stroke remanufactured engines that are set to a standard of ISO 9001 2015 standards, which is a huge deal in the aftermarket. And there's certain levels of quality testing, validation that are required for that. So, when you get one of those engines, the type of quality that's built behind it with an industry leading warranty that's really comprehensive. And, the other thing with that is, sometimes the options that are out there, it's a basic OEM engine. You want a little bit more. You don't want to have the same failure again. So there's a bunch of different series of engines that they have, from core, street, tow haul, and also the Speed of Air series, which we've covered on the podcast before. There's a lot of really cool benefits to it. And if you have questions about that, reach out to them. If you don't know the type of engine that you're looking for, if you go to dfcdiesel.com, there's a ton of info there. You can send an email or you can reach out to them. Also, they're working with Speed of Air pistons, which it's the only piston that pays for itself. And there's a lot of really cool technology behind it. So you can add that into your build and be able to get better fuel economy, increase power, increase torque, and better engine life out of it. Some of the most common engine applications or series of engines that they have with that lead time, a lot of them are in stock or they have really short lead times. So you can check your favorite retailer or go to dfcdiesel.com, check them out, see what's in stock, see what you can get. If you have questions, maybe you want to do something that's outside of the normal series of engines, they have tons of choices for rods, cranks, pistons, valve train upgrades, tons of different things. So if you're in the market, definitely make sure and head on over and check them out. I think that's a really key part of like our discussion. And when like this episode goes out, somebody might find it 6 months from now, or sometimes we get comments on episodes from 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
What you just mentioned there is so important, because if I was looking at a used truck, I love the 2017 plus F250, F350. I love that body style. It's one of my favorite ones ever.
Mhm.
I like the transmissions. I think they're stout. I love the other components on the truck. It's just a fantastic platform. But what would hold me back would be that injection pump. And it's before, I didn't really feel like there was a solid sort of solution in years past. Like,
Mhm.
there were things that might help it, but it's just, I've had people on the podcast talk about the expense of a CP4 replacement.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's no joke.
It would just scare me out of it. But this, I would invest in this. I would say, I love this truck. I love what it can do. It tows, plenty, has all these creature comforts that I want. And now I can go into it knowing there's a solution where I could take advantage of 20 plus years of R&D development, or if I
Right.
want more power, that's out there. I really, really like how this is going to position that platform.
Right, right. Yeah, and like you're saying, even if you are looking at buying a truck and it still has a CP4 on it, you buy it knowing, like you're saying, that there is a solution to that potential issue. And you buy a truck that's still running okay, put it on right away and you're good to go. Yeah, that's a good angle on it.
I always try to think about things from kind of that perspective, because there just seems to be that people are holding on for trucks longer than they used to, or another kind of buying phase they get into is they don't want to buy new, they don't want to invest that kind of money, but they don't want to go back to 2005 or 6 either. They want
Right,
some of the technology in the newer trucks. And so I
right.
always look for solutions in the marketplace that address the reliability. And I think this, when I first saw it, I was like, I've got to get Snyder Performance Engineering on the podcast. I've got to talk to him about this product, because it's just combining a proven platform with the ingenuity that you guys put into this to make it work to install smoothly, to I don't need tuning to put it on my truck, and just make it as seamless, as possible. So it's been a long time since I've been this excited to talk about a brand new product on the market
Oh,
and what it's going to do.
and and we're fired up. I mean, this has been something that's been, I mean, even before the DCR was released, oddly enough, we had already started working on this, which is, it kind of was one of those things where like, man, do we start pushing the testing because that came out and like we need to get it out? And we were like, you know what? It's there. It is what it is. It's already out. Let's just press on, continue making it. So we've been refining it and making it as best we can over the last 2 years. Um, and and obviously we're really fired up to release it because it's been happening for a while. So
Yeah.
uh, collectively between our beta testers, us, I think we have what, 3 or 4 trucks now. I think 2, 3. I think we have 4 of our own trucks running it. Extra G has a couple trucks, and we have the beta testers that have been running it. And collectively, we're well over. I mean, we've got to be pushing close to 100,000 miles. Just even over the last few months between all the platforms. So we got a decent amount of testing on it. We're really happy with how everything's progressing, and yeah, needless to say, yeah, we're really fired up about it as well. So
Something I thought would be cool to spend a little bit of time on is I think I met you guys maybe 10 or 11 years ago, at like a dealer training thing a long time ago. And I've followed you guys
yeah,
throughout
yeah,
the
yeah,
years. And
yeah,
I've seen the tremendous amount of growth that you guys have had from like the first time meeting you guys to where SPE is now. And while I know all those details, I know about the growth, the building, the machines, the people. I thought it would
yeah,
be great to have you spend a little bit of time talking about that because like I see this product, I understand the benefits of it. I would want to run it on my 6.7 Power Stroke, and I think everyone being able to see the growth and the precision and the equipment and the people and the process that you guys have there, it'll really
yeah,
connect the dots how a product like this could come to market.
yeah. So, um, not going too crazy far back, but I worked at Ford. I was a tech, and basically all my background throughout the years has always been it's been mechanical, whether it was building race cars, whether it was working at a dealership. And that was really my passion. And it got to the point where, this is probably like let's call it 2008, 2010, that range. And it got to the point where being, working at Ford, coming home, working in the evenings. My family's always done drag racing and some sort of form of racing, whether it was, like I said, drag racing, go-karts, whatever it was, dirt bikes. Um, so that was always there, and I would be working on things in the evening, and my wife Amy's like, "Hey, you got to figure something out. Like we're not you're not sleeping for 4 hours for the rest of our lives every night." So, and she wanted to eventually start a family, so she's like, "You got to choose." So she laid the law down, and I chose, all right, let's do the business that we really want to do, which at the time it was a performance shop, and it was more service oriented, service based. And it was really cool because we got to do all the things that we really were passionate about, which was fixing stuff for people. Was basically, products weren't really a thing that was in mind then. It was more or less, all right, this guy's got an issue, let's fix the issue and figure out what we got to do to make this customer happy. So we did that, the customer service side of things up to probably like 2016-ish, in that ballpark. Um, and what basically happened again is we were doing custom work as well. So say we did a turbo kit, or we did a roll cage, or whatever it was, we build that, and then that person would take that vehicle, they'd take it away, and they'd show their buddy, and their buddy would be like, "Oh, I want that too." Well, like I said, we didn't have a manufacturing or product background, so they'd call us and we'd be like, "Yeah, bring it up. We'll build you whatever you want."
Yeah.
So we'd build it and we'd do it again, and then their buddy would want it. But at the time, not having, a manufacturing or product background, we were doing all this stuff custom. So it was just, there was no jigs involved. It was just custom stuff. And it got to the point where, once again, my wife Amy steps in and says, "Hey, you got to make a decision again. We can't be doing service and custom products and trying to do eventually products." So we're like, "Oh man." So I, I had to sit down and think about it again. And we had such an enormous amount of people wanting us to make nice, reliable, solid products for that platform. And that was the 6.7 platform and even some Mustang stuff. And we're like, "All right, well, let's do it. Let's figure this out." So we started to slowly transition into products. And I'd say by 2017 to 2018, we had fully transitioned into doing product line, and we were we were outsourcing, like local machine shops and stuff. We were working with them to make some of our products because obviously I didn't have a machining background or anything like that. We were basically I was doing 2D drawings and things like that just to design our products. I was doing it from a standpoint of out of my head that made sense, which was basically pencil and paper, and doing it that way. And once again, I started to see this trend of like, all right, I'm gonna have to dive deeper in and actually learn CAD and do all this the hard way, and essentially start over like my thinking, my process. So we I took some online classes and did a bunch of stuff while we were also doing everything on the day to day, which also included building engines and transmissions. We never got rid of that. And we did that for a few years, and eventually I was able to get dialed with CAD and get all that down, and moved into the manufacturing aspect. So I learned programming, and then we were able to actually move out of outsourcing to other machine shops, and we bought our first machine, and then it was just one thing, led to the next thing. So, I mean, I really shortened that up, but that's essentially what happened, and then we had to. There was definitely nothing handed out with it though. It was a long ride. It was a long ride, and I don't think we would change anything. So
It's a really fascinating story. And it's one that I love talking about on the podcast. Like, to tell a little bit of a story is I had met Braden and Chase Fleece years ago at a Diesel Power Challenge. And at that time, I knew they were in Indiana. They did some performance stuff. And here they were with like a silver, Cummins that was doing DPC. And fast forward to earlier this year, I did a episode with Braden, and he walked me through their facility. And he said something like, "Do you like Rolex?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I love Rolexes." And he's like, "This machine that I have here is what cuts the cases on Rolexes, and we're using it here to be able to make a turbo part, or it was some component."
yeah,
And I
yeah,
was so fascinated by the growth from, I think they started in a barn to this huge
right,
facility making this.
right,
And when I look at you guys, it's the same sort of story. And people, especially in this industry, like, they want to do what you did. They want to eventually, I think everyone who owns a shop, everyone who's an entrepreneur in it, they want to make their own product. And it seems so
right,
daunting. Like, when you were telling me the process, I was like, oh man, this seems like climbing Everest here, because you have to learn so much. You have to,
for sure. Yeah, it's a lot.
the logistics, kind of putting everything together. If you were talking like to your younger self, or maybe someone who's listening right now, they have a successful repair shop, something like that, and they're thinking, man, I want to do that too one day. What would be some tips you would give somebody who ultimately wants to design and manufacture their products to get there? Like, would there be mistakes you made along the way you would change, or maybe you didn't make mistakes, but you really
I would
invested, in these paths?
I would say that that's actually it, what you just said there. You're going to fail. Like there is not a doubt about it. It's what you do after. Like that, like we failed at stuff. I mean, not even just from the product end, just the financials ends and all kinds of things along the way. It's like the biggest thing is just like pushing through it. You know what I mean? Like learn from your mistakes and just don't quit. Find that goal that you want to reach and just stick at it. I think that was probably the biggest thing that we would battle with is it's like, how did they do it? How are these people, getting to that point? And there's really nobody that's just gonna hand you that stuff, like you got to look at that and go, okay, that's where I want to be. That's what I want to get done. This is my goal. And irrelevant to how many times you fail, you just keep that persistence. I would say, get your head right and understand that persistence is going to take it. That's what you're going to need. And I think and the other thing is too, is in the long run of everything that we've been through, I am at this point, like the success of our business, I'm a tiny little piece of that. You know what I mean? Like Amy's Amy's a lot more the face of this business than I am, and she was without her this business wouldn't even function. So, and I know that, and a lot of people here know that. So, but uh, but yeah, I would say just being persistent and sticking to what you want to achieve. You know what I mean? And eventually it comes.
Got to have the patience through it.
Yeah.
Probably that's probably a big
Well,
part
you
too.
lose it. You lose it all the time. I mean, I lose it once a week usually, but you usually come back down to earth and just know that you got to figure it out. You just figure it out. So,
Whenever historically I've thought of 6.7 Power Stroke performance, I always thought of you guys. And I'm not sure if it was because of your passion for that platform or if it was the racing, whether it was the rail or the UCC trucks. But whenever somebody would ask me a question that they wanted to do something with their 6.7, I'd be like, just go to Snyder Performance Engineering. Like they know what
yeah,
they're doing. They've
I
been there, done that.
appreciate that.
And when you look out towards the future of this platform, what are some things that have you excited, or what as kind of gears start spinning on the manufacturing side or the products or maybe power potential? What are some things that have you excited about the 6.7 Power Stroke?
Well, one of the things I've always been excited about ever from the beginning with that platform is I have had a lot of connections over the years, like with some Ford engineers and people I've met through like training and school and stuff. And I was originally told during the 6.4 era when they came out with the 6.7, I was told it was going to be a 20-year motor, and we're really on track for that. So I think with them just coming out with the HO, I think in 23, and making some of the changes that they did, I think we're on track for that. One of the things, if I had to pick something I was excited about, um, I think the platform may move into more hybrid stuff. I think they would keep the engine and maybe tie in some hybrid system stuff to it to, eliminate some turbo lag stuff or just give it that instant power, help with some fuel economy. I could see that coming. I'm interested in seeing how those systems get integrated. The F-150 has something semi-similar to that. But I think we're going to start seeing a little bit of that in that market as well.
It's funny you mentioned that because when I think of the power boost, that is something that's always kind of piqued my interest from kind of the nerdy side. Is I'm like,
Yeah,
you have this electric power to be able to complement this twin turbo engine, and my mind
right.
immediately goes to diesel, and I think, gosh, what would that be like to be able to have some sort of combination like that? And to me, Ford is so innovative, maybe the
Yeah.
most
Oh, for
innovative
sure.
brand of the big three. They always seem to be setting trends or a bar. And
Right.
so that's something, I know we're speculating, but I just kind of think this diesel stuff isn't going away. And with stories like yours of the the manufacturing ability, the R&D ability, the approach that you guys take, there's going to be a future for that for a really long time on that side of it.
I think so. I think so too. And it's one of our, like you were saying about, the testing aspect and the R&D side of it. One thing we learned really early on was from as a platform transitions and grows over the years, like the 11 to 14, the 15 to 16, 17, 19, 20 plus, et cetera. Um, whenever we do development on those, if we make parts for it, we own it. So every single one of those we own, we test. Sometimes we own more than one just because it's a different variation of it. Um, coming from that world, I take it very seriously when it comes to like abuse and testing and making sure our parts are reliable. I mean, there's things all the time that we'll have, in testing for a year to 2 years before we even consider releasing it. Just because we really have a lot of pride in what we do, and I want that to show in our product. You know what I mean?
I
So
think in a lot of other industries, I think it's become more commonplace that it's like the customer's beta tested on, and it gets really tiring
Yeah.
when that happens. So it's refreshing to hear on the diesel side and what you're doing there. You guys
Right.
do that yourselves, and I think
Yep.
when it does come out, I can have full confidence that you guys have put it through more paces than I ever will. So I don't have to. I don't have to worry
Right.
about that. For anyone who's listening and maybe they're in the market right now, maybe they just had a CP4 failure or they want to learn more, ask questions. How can they find you guys online? How can they reach out, connect with you guys, and be able to either ask questions about this product or there's a lot of other ones you guys have for 6.7s, Mustangs, other things that they might be
Yeah.
interested in.
All social media platforms. We're on all those. And you can just call us directly. The phone number's on the website. You can email us. All that stuff's on our website on the contact tab. So yeah, I mean, we'll talk to you however you want to talk. So
What's the
it's
what's the website address?
it's spemotorsport.com.
Okay, nice and easy to remember.
Yep, simple.
Very cool, Dan. Well, I appreciate your time today. It's been great to connect with you on this and some of those other questions I've been wanting to ask you for years as far as the growth and your approach to it because it's a valuable aspect that a lot of people they love to hear their favorite diesel company or people that are in this industry how they did it, how they achieved those things. So I'm excited about this kit. Like I said, when I first saw it, I'm like, I've got to get Dan on, talk to him about this, and I think it's going to add a huge reliability and power potential aspect to 6.7. So it was fantastic to catch up with you today and really cool to see where you guys are going.
And if people are interested in it and they're looking to get it, this Black Friday should be the release date. So that's what we're shooting for, and I think that's the first time it's been said. So I think you got it on the podcast. So
I heard it here
so,
first on the Deeps
yep.
podcast.
So we're looking for we've been shooting for Black Friday. So we got a bunch of other stuff we're releasing as well. So
Very cool. Thanks again for your
but,
time, Dan.
yeah, hey, we appreciate it as always, and thanks for having me.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code 20 TDP 2026 to get 20% off your cart. It's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear if you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, or around the house. They've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, different handle designs, different opening mechanisms. And their whole lineup's designed to meet any budget that you might have. So again, if you're in the market, head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com and use code 20 TDP 2026 for 20% off your shopping cart. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters, Robert, TSW Diesel, Brian, John, all of our other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube and podcast apps, follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 9 of the Diesel Podcast and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2025. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.